So I'm way out of practice on this, and a couple of minutes ago I was like, I hope that things aren't going to go wrong, and I've already started talking while the mic was muted. So I'm going to start again, and we'll make a start. So we are going to record this. There's a few people who have messaged separately asking if we're recording it because it's summer, people are away, people are on holiday, people would rather be in a nice bar sitting in the sunshine, doing fun things than sat on the internet listening to somebody talk at them for an hour. So we are going to record this, and I think over the next couple of weeks as well, or the next few weeks and few months, as we do more AMAs, the likelihood is that we will pre-record some very kind of quick updates to start kind of giving you more info without having to do a really kind of formal, lengthy AMA. That's not to say that we won't do these. Of course we will, and it's felt like a long time as well, and I personally really enjoy doing them, but we're very mindful that as we get closer to dropping this next round of updates, we want to be pushing more frequent updates through to you. So we'll do some recording and start sharing those. I suppose the first thing to do is share an update of where we are. Obviously it's summer. Last time we spoke, I think we were in possibly a kind of bullish, bearish market. We've definitely been in a bear market over the last few months, which hasn't been that enjoyable for a lot of people. But actually, we probably needed it, and everybody expected it. You know, through COVID, crypto did incredibly well, as you would expect, because people were at home, and actually, like, the economy bounced worldwide better than anybody ever thought it would. So, it was definitely a golden time when we started. Over the last few months, maybe not so much, and it has been tough. But I personally think that we kind of needed it. Things needed to cool, maybe not to the extent that they have, but they definitely needed to cool, and it's given everybody a little bit of perspective, let everybody take a bit of a step back as well, and kind of assess what is, like, what's real and what isn't, and all of that kind of stuff that you kind of have to do when you get caught in this crypto bubble. While that's all been going on, though, we've been building, and we've been a bit quieter. We've been quieter for longer than we wanted to as well. I think there's a couple of questions later on around kind of marketing and how active we've been, and we've never slowed down as far as development goes. We've never kind of taken our foot off the gas there. There's been a lot of challenges, which again I will talk about in a few minutes. But while everything's slowed down, we've taken the opportunity to carry on building, and that's what we're here to do. So dev has been a massive challenge. I think the scale of this project was probably bigger than we ever expected, and that's been because of a few key things. So firstly, defining the overlap between on-chain and off-chain is something that I've always found really interesting and really exciting, especially about kind of this project and how Awaken's built. You know, what's technically possible, what is in the spirit of Web3, and how do we want to push these limits. And as we've gone through this build process, we've found that there was things that we wanted to do off-chain, which in theory work perfectly, but actually when you come to do it, you need to bring an element of them on-chain to make everything work, and to work within what Web3 is. Otherwise, you might as well just build like an old-school text-based Facebook game that was around 15 years ago. So that's been a huge challenge. The other big challenge, and this is probably the biggest of them all, was around the original contracts. So, you know, they're all sound, and I think we've seen from the very start that when we dropped this project, gas was lower than most of the projects that were dropping at the time, and everything's been really well optimized. That hasn't changed. You know, the multipass contract, the avatar contract, gear contract, we've got a little issue with that, as is mentioned in a while as well. You know, they're all sound, but when you start building out things like passive earnings for our in-game token and gamification, and the fact that some of the contracts are ERC 1155, and you're tying multiple contracts together with different flows of authorization as you kind of move through them. When you're tying all that together, you are opening yourself up to potential issues, and we always knew that would be the case. I don't think that we expected, as we went through this process, that we would find that we needed to change quite as much as we have done. I will talk in more detail about that later, because there is a question that's directly related to it, so I don't want to answer that now and then kind of steal somebody's thunder with the question that they've asked. But between those two things, so the overlap between on-chain and off-chain and the existing contracts, like the dev on this has been difficult. In February, we thought that we were really getting somewhere and we were nearly there and we were all kind of happy and feeling like we were close to launching. And then we realised that actually we pretty much needed to start again, which was great. So from a financial point of view and from a time point of view, not the best few weeks. The architecture from there was rebuilt literally from the ground up. So contracts have been rewritten. There's been loads of sprints, so dev sprints that were interrupted by reworks of kind of the concept and updates to how we wanted to do things. And the output is pretty similar to what we thought we had in February and what we wanted from the start. But we've gone a really roundabout way to make sure that when we get to the end of this process, that it's done in the right way so that the build is as sound as it possibly can be. Like I say, taking a huge amount of time and a huge amount of sleepless nights, but it'll be worth it in the end. So the upshot of all of this, as we all know, we are pretty damn late. I'm not sure if anybody noticed, but we are. But there is finally light at the end of the tunnel. So the current status is that avatars with the passive in-game token earning, so the Awaken token, and the blocks with claiming and again passive earnings are in the final stages of dev. So the front end for our system is built, the back end for the system is built, the smart contracts are built, and now we're pushing towards doing an end-to-end test and tying everything together, which includes demo creative. So the creative for the blocks and the creative for the updated avatars, which again I will come on to soon. That is the next stage. And obviously the associated metadata and what have you that sits behind that, which again I'll talk about in a little while. So that's where we are. But what could trip us up? So there's a few things. I think the main thing is if the end-to-end test fails and we find more issues than we expect to, that is obviously going to trip us up. If some work that we're doing to make sure that the next phase can be implemented with the contracts that we have without issue, if that fails, that can trip us up. And I suppose finally, like outputting 120,000 blocks with avatar images is a very lengthy and quite frustrating process. If that means that I go and jump out of a very high building, that's obviously a bit of a trip up for the project as well. I think that last one is unlikely to happen. I can't promise. It's not the most fun process, but going through that QA and making sure that it's right is something that I want to do personally, and obviously Ohora is involved in that as well. But the first two, this is a big couple of weeks coming up. So the next time that we do one of these kinds of sessions, I'll have an update on that, and hopefully everything is perfect and everybody's happy. Okay, so that's where we are. Hopefully that's covered everything. It feels like we've fast forwarded a good few months since the last one, so there's a huge amount more that's happened, but I'm trying to kind of cover the stuff that's important and pertinent to what you want to hear. So yeah, hopefully that covers everything, but as always, if you have more questions to ask as we go through this, feel free to drop it into the AMA channel. Obviously there'll be a lot more listening separately once we've uploaded the recording. So anybody who's listening not live, if you've got any follow-up questions, drop it into either the Vault or general chat, and as always, we will do our best to answer. Okay, so there's quite a few questions as you would expect. First one from Untaught Talent. Are Tuesdays and Thursdays your only Awakened days, or is that excluding weekends? Going from evenings and weekends to only 2 days seems like the same thing. Yeah, so it's not as if I only work on Awakened on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're just the days that I have set aside to be able to focus on this. Last week, I pretty much worked 4.5 days, maybe even 12.5 days if you add up the number of hours, just on Awakened. So yeah, it's not as if I'm just working on this 2 days and then disappearing. As I've said before, this is a kind of side project. But over the last 6 months or so, I've changed how I work day to day and given myself more time to work on this. So it's kind of not so much a side project now as more the main thing that I'm working on. Also from Untaught Talent. Any progress update that we can see? All sneak peeks are old templates or art. Something current will be great. Yeah, that is coming. So like I say, we're going through production for blocks and the updated avatars side of things at the moment and doing that end-to-end test that I talked about with the front-end integration. So as we do that, and as we feel like we're getting close to launch, and I'll talk about timelines in a while, we will 100% be dropping more sneak peeks in. What I want to be mindful of is that we don't drop so many sneak peeks in that actually everything that's going to be there before it launches. So there is a bit of a balance, but we will start showing you more creative and more fun stuff as well. Next, DK Random. Are we going to get an updated roadmap and path forward for the game? Yeah, 100%. So once this dev sprint is done, we will update the roadmap and drop that in as well. And kind of along those same lines as well, also from DK Random, what's the plan for the comic drop and marketing moving forward? Bear market's rough. Yeah, it is. But what are the plans to move through this and get people re-engaged? Okay, so comic drop will happen before the blocks and before the blocks and avatar drop happens. That's part of our marketing push. There is another question as well later on around marketing, so I'll try and answer some of that now and some of it in a little while. But essentially, the plan is that once we actually have something and once we are there and happy that it is as perfect as it possibly can be, then we start marketing. So as soon as it's done and we know that we're ready to go, we're not going to launch it the day after. We're going to kind of start to ramp up that marketing. So it will take a week or two. We're going to re-engage with the people that kind of supported us almost a year ago now, which is absolutely terrifying. So we'll re-engage with those people. Obviously, more people have come into the market as well, and what we have is something that we think is quite different and can grow over time as well. So engaging with new people as well, and really start pushing that forward. So lots of time needed, lots of work to do on the marketing side of things, as we know, but we want to make sure that we have the best possible product before we go out and push that. Because if we push something before it's ready, then we get this kind of start-stop, which we really don't want to have. Next, from Quadra Q, how will the transition to the new contract be handled? Will it fix bugs like being unable to apply gear to avatars that you didn't mint yourself? Yeah, that frustratingly, that gear bug is the main thing that we need to get on top of. There's two sides to that. I'll talk about that before I talk about the transition. So there's two sides to this gear bug. One is that we have a weird interruption going on when you apply a gear token to an avatar that can screw around with metadata. We still don't actually understand that's happening because the way that the code's built, it shouldn't be possible. But there is a few examples that we've seen where either when you first mint an avatar, the wrong metadata is being applied, or when you mint the gear token, the wrong metadata is being applied. We think it's the former, but we're not 100% sure. The dev that originally worked on this wasn't available for a long time, which was pretty frustrating, but he is now working on that and trying to fix it. So that is kind of an aside. Applying gear tokens, the contract issue, is another issue with gear. And the plan is that when we move into these new contracts, that we have a workaround for that. That is part of the end-to-end test. So I'm not going to promise now that we've definitely got that fixed, because it's a little bit more complicated, because we can't change the gear contract, unlike the multipass contract, for example, which is an upgradable ERC 1155. The gear contract isn't. So we can't change we can't change that, but we're trying to find a workaround which will mean that there isn't that issue anymore. The transition to the new contract is pretty straightforward. So essentially it's a swap. You will swap your avatar for something else. And I'm not going to say exactly what that is at the moment. It's not a massive deviation from where we are at the moment. But when you are ready, you will swap that avatar for this new thing. And that is when those passive earnings kick in. Now, the process of the token earnings for the game, once an avatar was minted from December onwards, we've built up that, and we will honour that from whenever they were minted. That will stop at a certain date, and then when you'll have a gap. So if you mint straight away and move into this new thing, all your earnings will just carry on. If you wait, then you will have a drop-off and you won't earn the token for that period of time. So there's a little bit of complexity in there, and it's up to you to decide whether or not you're ready to go straight away or not. I don't think there's any reason that you wouldn't do. But the actual interface is a really, really simple, straightforward thing. You drop into the front end, you select the ones that you want to swap over, you accept that through MetaMask, and it just does it all for you. Okay, next. Habiki, can we please get some details on the city DAOs and the in-game politics? Soon, yeah, we're kind of focusing on making sure that this kind of first phase of the gamification drop is done, and then we'll come back to that. Moosey Fate, any idea on how many active players will be required to make this game succeed? It really depends. Like at the start, you can just have 2 people playing, and as long as they're happy, then that's okay. Obviously, as time goes on and you get kind of into the politics side of things, then you need more and more. So there's not really a set number, and it depends how engaged people are. And again, it's something that I would expect will evolve over time as long as we get things right. Of course, more individuals is better for network effect. However, does the actual game mechanics depend on critical mass? No, not really. We've tried to build it in a way that it scales. So if you've got a lot of people, then obviously it's potentially more engaging because you have that kind of off-contract, off-game conversation that would happen in Discord, for example. But actually, you can run this with a very small number of people as well. What are we doing to get back those people that were pumped for Awaken but maybe fell off because of development time and bear markets and so on? Is there a strategy for YouTube influencers to re-engage and cover again? Yeah, like I said before, once we are happy that the product is right, we will go back, we'll re-engage with those people, we'll engage with new people, and we'll push as hard as we can. There's no guarantees in any of this, and we're going to need all of your help as well to really push things on. But yes, we're going to be doing that. DK Random, is this dashboard thing a new idea? Is it the reason we aren't ready for the cities launch? If it's new, why did we decide to add it? If it's not new, can you go over what's caused such a huge delay from the initial plans? So it's new in the way that we've done it. So we always needed a dashboard because you need somewhere to manage the assets that you have, but it's become more advanced over time. So it's designed in a way that gives you the ability to go in and manage where you are attaching your cities and avatars together when you are kind of claiming your tokens and when you're doing other things as well that will be developed over time. So it's not the reason that we aren't ready, but it is part of a bigger, more complicated problem that we've found, and a number of problems that we kind of found and fixed as we went on. So it's, I suppose the simple answer is it's just part of the dev cycle, and it's part of something that evolved over time. Next, Wagarisi. Will there be any incentives or rewards for holders that have been here since the beginning? Yeah, so if you minted an avatar back in December, then your token earnings will have been adding up since then. And obviously, if you've upgraded an avatar for any reason, then they would increase as well, which means that you can get into the game quicker and you can potentially buy additional blocks faster and do the other stuff that we have planned as well. Master Ang, will lower level avatars get any additional perks and advantages for minting early? I was expecting low levels would have a slightly higher awaken balance at launch, but delays are making that gap smaller and smaller. Yeah, it's why we're pushing so hard to get this launched. That was exactly our aim as well, but as time's ticked on, I know that gap is getting smaller. At the moment, there isn't anything planned, but before we drop, I will make sure that we do the maths and make sure that lower level avatars are rewarded to the extent that they need to be. Because, people who did mint early, we said before that we would see them right, and it's a big part of what we wanted to do. So, yeah, we'll make sure that's the case. DK Random, how is the land drop going to go? Are we going to let it be open to claim land for each avatar until all are minted, or are we going to have to mint the avatar by a certain time to claim the land? Yeah, it will be time-based. So everybody will get the opportunity, but it's not going to be forever. So if you have an avatar on day one when land drops, you will have a time period where you can go and claim that for free. After that time period is over, the way that you acquire blocks will be through the Awakened token. Habiki, are there plans to have the avatars get experience or items by engaging in tasks, or will the rewards just be the token? Yeah, so the plan is to do it by engaging in tasks, and we have the spec for that built out. Development obviously hasn't been done yet, but yeah, there are tasks and things that you do, which then rewards you with things. And to do those things, you also need other things, which is a roundabout way of saying that yes, you're right, but I'm not going to talk in too much detail about that at the moment. Habiki, will cities have leaders, and have you considered how they'll be selected? Yeah, that's part of the plan for the DAO. Obviously, that's kind of in a future build phase, and it's something that will be done as any project would hopefully in Web3, and that's going to be voted by the community. So you will find that leaders appear because they have a larger holding. So if you hold more blocks, then obviously you have more power, and same with the Awakened token as well. But yeah, that's something that will kind of come out through the community and through the game. Bailey 21, this is a long question, so bear with me. Forgetting about Copernicus for a moment, we have 10 different cities with 556 owners having 2,000 avatars. If avatars are divided equally among the cities, that's only 200 each. If we also consider that many owners have more than one avatar in each city, and of course not knowing gameplay and whether more than one of the owners' avatars can be active at the same time, this number could reduce significantly. How can the ecosystem and the economy of a city with such few inhabitants develop and flourish? It kind of goes back to what we said before. So if you just want to be kind of involved at a base level in Awakened and, earn your token, do the tasks stuff that we talked about before, then that's one thing. If we want to kind of create this living, breathing city that we talked about all the way back in at the end of last year, then more people are going to need to be involved. So we think that this will come together, and we think that people are going to enjoy playing it. And obviously, as people enjoy playing it, that means that potentially the kind of sale of the various assets that we have, those sales will increase, which means that we have more revenue to push back into developing this, which means that we can do more fun stuff, which means that more people get involved. So it's kind of all self-fulfilling. As long as we get this first stage right and people do want to engage with it, whether that's re-engagement or new people coming in, then we can start to build things out. Hopefully that happens. We're going to push and do everything we can to make sure that it does. But some of that is dependent on us being able to build this community. And if we can do that, then like I say, it means that we can develop more and create something brilliant. If for whatever reason we have 5 people sat there and not really caring, that's a different story. I don't think, and I hope that won't be the case, but we'll see. DK Random. How much stuff is actually left to be done for cities, and how many people do we have working on it? I think I covered the how much is left to be done at the start. How many people do we have working on it? Very quick count. So dev, 1, 2, 3, creative, 4, 5, 6. So 7 in total between dev and creative and so on. And what's left to be done is outputting the blocks hopefully for the final time, because we've been working on this for a while, and the end-to-end test. Untaught talent. What's the game? Can we get an explanation on how all the traits and assets will work together to form our gameplay, and what's it going to be exactly? So this again goes back to all the way back to the start when I talked about this last year. So the idea is that it's blockchain gamification. So you have your avatar, which is your persona that sits within the city. You have your block, which means that you own part of that city, and therefore you start earning the token. The token is your currency to use within the game, and you can buy things that then lets you do tasks, which then lets you earn more money, which then lets you buy more blocks, which then lets you buy more things. That means that you can do high-level tasks, and you can kind of evolve and move up through the echelons of this virtual kind of blockchain-based world that we have. Alongside that, you then have the politics of cities. So if people own more blocks within the cities, they can then have more say and control over what actually happens in those cities. Again, like we need people to be playing that, and people to be engaged, and the revenue from the resale and so on to let us kind of build all of this out. But essentially, we're creating this kind of virtual blockchain-based world. Solarverse. If this is based on the Fifth Element, it's not. So you mentioned IP there. I need to be really clear. It's not based on the Fifth Element. The genre that we're in is a genre that's been around for a relatively long period of time. Cyberpunk covers everything from Fifth Element to the game that goes by the same name to books and novels and art and all kinds. So this isn't the Fifth Element. This is very much kind of a cyberpunk world, which is our own making. So yes, there are kind of references to the likes of the Fifth Element, but we are intentionally not we're not trying to build a spin-off to the Fifth Element. Bailey 21. We were told that minting early would have benefits, and that's been the Awakened token so far. And obviously, as higher levels earn more, they're now overtaking lower levels. Again, that's something that we want to keep an eye on and make sure that lower levels are rewarded to the extent that we wanted them to be. You have an idea around lower levels earning higher rewards, which obviously is an option. And then you've got a follow-up question, which is if I use a multipass to upgrade a level 1 to a level 4, does it receive the level 4 token reward from the original minting date or from the upgrade date? So that is from the upgrade date. And And if there is a further advantage to minting an early level revealed at a later date, does it still qualify, or is it screwed because it's been upgraded? Yeah, so if you upgrade from a level 1 to a level 4, and we decide that we're going to do something for level 1s in the future, your level 4 won't get it because it's been upgraded. There is obviously blockchain, so we know when things have been upgraded, so it might be that we decided that we were going to offer it to any avatars that were minted before the end of December, for example, whether they've been upgraded or not. That's something that we could do. We don't have any plans to do that right now, but it is 100% something that we could do. And the logic for knowing when avatars were minted and when they were upgraded is already built into the back-end system because we needed it for a few other things as well. So we already have that data and we have that system built out. Next, I'm just going to have a sip of water, bear with me. Is there any plans, this is DK Random again, lots of questions from DK, so thank you. Is there any plans to reward the holders who've been holding since mint? Would be nice to kind of throw a bone at those who've stuck around and participated through these months. So again, faster token earnings through the avatars was part of that. It is something that has crossed my mind that when we get to this launch phase, that kind of rewarding people who have been with us from the start, whether that's through an airdrop or something, would be a good thing to do. I won't promise, but hopefully you know by now that we always try and kind of do our best and see people straight. So there is definitely potential that we would do that. Also from DK Random, also any chance there's some benefit to holding avatars of every level, maybe a combo bonus or something? Again, yes, so that is something that we have talked about. It's something that Twicky really wanted to do, and it wasn't just about avatars of every level. So if you hold an avatar at different levels and a multipass and a comic and whatever else it is, then you get some kind of reward, or you have the option to claim something. So yeah, that is something that we've talked about. Zythus, is the team financially able to develop through the bear market? Yeah, so this is definitely a challenge. The bear market's been tough, and it has had an impact on how much we're paying for some parts of the project. So there's some parts of the dev that we pay for in crypto and in ETH. Now, we kept a reserve. We kind of moved everything out, but we kept a separate reserve in some other wallets as well. So we've been able to carry on development and do that through the bear market. That hasn't stopped, and the financials haven't been an issue. We've got enough funds left to do at least another 1 or 2 development cycles as well, so that's not a problem. If we get towards It depends what happens with the bear market, obviously, but if we get towards, the end of the year or next year or so on, and we haven't seen an uptick in the number of sales and all of that kind of stuff, and we haven't sold more multipasses, for example, things may start to get tight. It's like any project. There's a finite time where you can fund things with the revenue that was generated. So it is something that we've thought about. It is something that's in the back of my mind as a concern. But it's not something that keeps me awake at night. I'm kind of committed enough to this to change things that I'm doing outside of Awakened from a work point of view, and spend more time on this. So hopefully that shows that we're not overly worried about that side of things. But obviously at some point, if we don't get this to fly, then there's a kind of a conversation and a thought process to be had. Can I see us walking away and just switching things off? Absolutely not. Like, we've come this far, we've poured blood, heart and soul into making sure that we got as far as we had, and we have. So yeah, it's not as if we're going to turn the servers off and disappear and leave you with your pictures. But realistically, this is essentially a business, and we have to be realistic about how we're trying to build things. MK Ultras, when token launch, so that is part of the drop. So with the updated avatars, with the blocks, comes the token and the gamification side of things as well. Solarverse, my question is, where does Leader at Awaken see the final project going? Really good question, and I think I've been asked this before, and I always see this as an evolution. So back at the end of last year, we had this kind of vision for something that we wanted to build. Honestly, I wish we were launching the stuff that we have built now 6 months ago, because we should have done. and we should have been able to launch it faster. There's genuine reasons for it, and between dev challenges and all of that kind of stuff, I don't think we could have done anything too differently. There's a couple of things that I think we could have moved faster on and probably pulled things forward by a couple of months. But I think being able to launch in March, April time, I don't see a world where actually we could have done that. And hindsight's a brilliant thing. There's a good saying that a friend of mine uses a lot. Everybody's got a PhD in hindsight. But yeah, looking back, that I would have liked us to have been ready back in March. Where do I see us going from here? We need to get the blocks and the avatars and the token launched. We then need to get the kind of task and mission side of things done and launched, which I think is where things start to get really exciting. And then we keep going and we kind of keep building out the awakened world and make it as engaging as we can. A lot of this comes from how people engage with the gamification that we're going to drop. So, if people really like it and people really engage with it, we'll do more of that. If there's things that we find that people don't think is quite where they should be, then we'll change. And we've always been really open to that. So I see this as an evolution. I think the team that we have is a really, really, really strong team, especially on the creative side with Uhura. I think the dev side of things has been a challenge, but we're really there now, and we've got a really great, solid team. From a management point of view as well, I think we're in a better place than we've ever been. Between Twicky and Vortex, they've done more behind the scenes than you will know, but actually Vortex has done a great job as well at being on Discord and answering questions and dealing with support and so on. So yeah, I think from a team point of view, we're where we want to be. Where the final project ends up, honestly, don't know, but it's exciting. And we've had a few questions come in this evening as well, so I'm going to go through and answer those. Sue, if you talk about trading avatars, I know you don't want to spoil anything, but how will that work with the level rarity status, or will they be the same? Yeah, they'll be the same. So if you have a level 4 super rare avatar now, then that will carry forward. It's just the asset that you have will be slightly different. And obviously that asset in turn means that you can claim the token and so on. Sue, what happened to the one-on-ones at the current time? There should be way more and different ones by now. Yeah, we it's a little while ago. We haven't talked about those for a few months, but there is something that we want to do with them. So the idea when they dropped was that they were going to be a separate collection. I think bringing them back into the Awakened universe makes a load of sense, and there's a way that we want to do that, but there's higher priorities at the moment, so we will do something with it. And DK asks about doing a giveaway for a one of one, maybe weighted by the number of avatars that you have. Yeah, again, that kind of thing. I would like those to be part of the main avatar collection, though, as opposed to a separate collection. So the mechanics of working out how to do that and making it worthwhile is something we need to think about. But yeah, one of ones will definitely come back around to our thought process pretty soon, I would think. Sue, if we mint a comic for each avatar, shouldn't we be able to trade them for new volumes, other benefits, city blocks, etc.? I can't imagine I or someone else will need 50 volumes of one comic. Yeah, fair. So yes, I can definitely see your point. Again, it's about priority and dev priority. So there's no reason that we couldn't do that. You trade in a comic for another volume and you burn the original version, for example, or you trade in your comic for a item in the store that then ties into the game side of things that we're talking about. So yeah, that's definitely possible. I agree that if you mint all 50 or mint 50 versions of the same comic, probably not that useful. So again though, priority, like we've got so much going on. It is crazy busy with dev, so bear with us on this kind of stuff. There's always things that have to be put to the back of the queue. And I've got a note that says Sue is currently typing, so if you've got another question, then I'll give you 10 seconds ish. Sadly, I don't have a countdown sound effect, or I'll definitely use that. And for once as well, my voice hasn't gone. I think last time we did this, I was either coming out of the other side of having a cold or COVID or something like that. So, and we actually delayed this by a couple of weeks again because of COVID. So apologies for that. Okay, I think the question's there, so it's been copy and pasted in. Give me 1 second. Can we get a date for the next AMA or get a new regulated schedule for it? Yeah. So we will, in 2 weeks, we will know from an end-to-end test point of view where we are. So I promise that on Sunday, the 21st of August, we will either drop in another live AMA, or we'll do a pre-recorded AMA that then gets shared into Discord and the Vault. After that, we will do one around 2 weeks later. I think it might be 3 weeks later because of something else that's going on towards the end of the month. But we will do our very, very best to get something in every couple of weeks, especially as we move through dev and get into this launch, because we know we need to be more active on the comm side of things. Some of that's my fault. Like, I just want to have this done, ready to go, and as perfect as it can be before we start really shouting, because it doesn't feel like the right thing to do to shout about stuff before you actually have some substance behind it. And I know that's not always how the crypto space works, but it's how I work and how we work. So we want to make sure that we have that substance before we really start shouting. But really fair, hold us to that as well. If for any reason you don't see an announcement about that AMA, feel free to drop some swear words into Discord and tell us that we have to do it. Okay. I think that is all the questions for now. So again, thank you as always for your patience, everybody's support. We occasionally get some kind of slightly disgruntled comments that dropped into Discord, which are always completely fair, but it's always kind of done in the right way. And when people are asking for updates, or when you've got ideas, or you're kind of venting frustrations on how long it's taking, know that we feel the same, but also know that when you say nice things, and when we talk about the project, and when we see people kind of sat in Discord still now, the amount of conversations that we see where people are just kind of chatting and seem like they've made friends through this little community is something that we really, really love to see, and we love working on Awaken. So as always, thank you for your support, and we will speak to you in a couple of weeks.